when I went looking for a solution, I found a much bigger problem. The note in my calendar, put there on April 14th, 2008, says, "Find a spine surgeon." For decades, I'd sought to avoid open warfare with my back, but on that date, the truce officially ended. Over the years, I'd spent a fortune on chiropractic care, acupuncture, physical therapy, and massage. I'd signed up for Pilates, yoga, Tai Chi, and strength training, but instead of abating, my pain intensified. By 2007, I could not sit or walk comfortably for more than a few minutes. My hip ached and my right leg was on fire. There seemed to be no escaping the pain. Like a rat in a lab experiment, without a prayer of avoiding the offending stimulus, I felt anxious, angry, and trapped. When my dear friend Stacy asked me to join her on a hiking trip in the Peruvian Andes, I told her I could not manage it. My anatomy was holding me hostage. Instead of climbing mountains, I would be going under the knife. I thought fixing my back would be as straightforward as fixing a broken wrist. I'd find a surgeon and get it done. But as I made my way through overwhelming amounts of material on the internet, I saw that I was wrong. As an ordinary patient, I risked drowning in a sinkhole of hype. However, as an investigative reporter with 3 decades of experience in digging for the facts, I recognized that I'd arrived on the scene at the ideal moment. Back pain treatment was a microcosm of everything that was wrong with the healthcare system. Back trouble, in all its permutations, cost the United States roughly $100 billion a year, more than is spent annually to treat cancer, coronary artery disease, and AIDS combined. On a per capita basis, other nations, chief among them the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, the Netherlands, China, and South Korea, also pay hefty bills. When I did my first internet search, I had no idea that I'd spend 6 years studying this topic. Nor did I realize that in the interim, procedures that, for decades, had been upheld as the gold standard in spine care would be relegated to the dusty and crowded shelves of misguided medicine. Spine surgeons' go-to procedure, lumbar spinal fusion, would be discredited. Primary care doctors would find that they'd launched a prescription opioid epidemic, and interventional pain physicians, those who perform epidural spinal injections, would be faced with evidence that their shots didn't work. Federal prosecutors would punish device manufacturers for selling spinal instrumentation that was inadequately tested. Painkiller manufacturers and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration would be found tucked into bed with each other, working the drug approval process without regard to patients' best interests. As the story evolved, the journalist in me relished each appalling revelation. As a patient, however, I felt as if I barely avoided stepping off the curb in front of a bus. Many people, I realized, were not so lucky. They got caught in a relentless loop and were commonly harmed in the process. As one mother, whose most recent episode of back pain commenced when she bent forward to hand her toddler a lollipop, wrote in an email, "In an effort to resolve my back problems, I've had a host of ridiculous medical encounters over the last few years. Some confusing, some offensive, some harmful, and I feel completely upside down and unclear about how to best find help." My goal with Crooked is to set the back pain industry's offerings in their proper context, so that patients have the information they need to make good decisions, to know what works sometimes, what works rarely, and what can cause harm. With luck, I will spare you the side effects of optimism bias, the very human proclivity to seek out information that supports your own views while ignoring that which does not. Patients have a tendency to overestimate the benefits of treatments while underestimating the down.